Hey, Sun Devil fans, Sandy Charles with DevilsDigest.com, and I'm joined by our publisher, Hode Rubino, and we are breaking down this Saturday's game, ASU against San Diego State. Okay, Hode, season opener last week, ASU was the heavy favorite, and they only won against New Mexico State by 6. Now, it's typical, have a knee-jerk reaction, be critical of them, but they are 1-0. Is there cause for concern in their level of play?
Yeah, I think that victory against New Mexico State definitely wasn't a clean victory. I mean, I think Todd Graham even called it an ugly win after the game. And you're right. I mean, when you don't play that well in week one, let alone lose a game you're not supposed to lose, yes, there are a lot of, issues of being, panic, signing, waving a lot of red flags and whatnot. And even you look around the Pac-12, I mean, teams like USC and Washington, which are expected to win their respective divisions, they did not have impressive debuts in week one. So, Arizona State maybe to some extent is in that same boat. But on the other hand, I think with teams like USC and Washington, for example, with the high level expectations that they have for this year and the way they finished last year, maybe you give them more of the benefit of the doubt than a team like Arizona State, which obviously is trying to turn around the program after back-to-back losing seasons. So maybe that's why there was a little more panic, a little more apprehension. I definitely think there was a lot of things to clean up after that game. We talked about a real drop-off between the first and the second quarter and the third and the fourth quarter. We talked about line of scrimmage battles being won with much higher frequency by New Mexico State. Something we really didn't expect coming into a game that when everything's said and done, 2017 schedule, this is still going to be the worst opponent Arizona State played all year. So, I think the concern is valid, but as far as having any reaching conclusions for the rest of the season, obviously that's not the prudent thing to do. And really the best thing for Arizona State right now is to play much better against San Diego State and really prove that week one was just that first game of the season, getting out the jitters, inexperienced players, new offensive coordinator, new defensive coordinator, and maybe after all those kinks are ironed out, week two shows that improvement that a lot of coaches and players are expecting to see from week one to week two.
Now the Aztecs roll in 1-0, but they are coming off the momentum of consecutive 11-win seasons. What challenges can they present offensively?
Well, when we talk about New Mexico State and we talked about how much the run game and their physicality may have been, could have been a challenge for Arizona State. And I think, again, going back to our post-game interview, we definitely did see that both the offensive and defensive lines for Arizona State did have issues, but specifically about the San Diego State offense, they're definitely a smash mouth football team. They're going to run it usually between the tackles, not a lot of fancy off tackle or jet sweeps and stuff like that. So I think that New Mexico State, even though their caliber of talent is nowhere close to San Diego State, I think that scheme could have helped them just prepare for what's about to come on Saturday. They have a very good running back who didn't see that much playing time last year in Rashad Penny, but he scored 2 touchdowns, had 197 yards on 21 carries against UC Davis last week. Now, obviously, again, we talk about caliber of opponent. UC Davis, not a great team. Arizona State probably expected maybe to win by just a bigger margin as San Diego State did, but you still have to be impressed by what he did as a true first-year running back, really being given the keys to the running game for the Aztecs. So I think that's really first and foremost what Arizona State really has to focus on. I thought Arizona State at times did a good job against Larry Rose, who's a pretty good running back in his own right from New Mexico State. So again, I think what they saw last week should prepare the Sun Devils to some extent as to what to expect on Saturday. But another aspect we talked about, and we mentioned again with the Aggies last week, when you have such a run-heavy team, you know that the passing game that you're going to face is really going to be play-action based, and it's really going to be, as we mentioned last week, an offense that maybe kind of lulls you to sleep with so many consecutive runs, and then they're going to try to get one over the top at you. So Well, I expect the Arizona State secondary really to be more sound and really prove that they can be good tacklers in terms of tackling the ball carrier. They really have to be careful not to be burned by those passes, from play action plays, and maybe from plays that maybe catch the Arizona State defense that's a little flat-footed. Again, when you face such a run-heavy team, that's one of the things that you have to worry about.
Now, San Diego State is a well-balanced team. Their defense is so solid. Last year, they yielded only 315 yards a game. How can ASU's offense combat such a strong unit?
Well, here's the thing about the San Diego State defense. I mean, you're right. I mean, they're definitely very stingy in as far as the yards that they're giving up. In some ways, they really remind you of, I think, the Arizona State defense that we saw here in 2013, where the front seven was so talented and really creating a lot of havoc just with their stunts up front and just with different formations, dropping the linebackers in coverage much more often than you usually see from other defenses, and all that chaos, all that complexity up front is what's really helping their secondary, being San Diego State, be very opportunistic in terms of interceptions, in terms of turnovers. So I think with their defense, I mean, they definitely are going to present a much bigger challenge than New Mexico State did. But one thing that I've heard time and time again, really, from the San Diego State coaches, players, even their beat writer who did an article on Devil's Digest, is that they're really concerned with Arizona State's speed. I mean, players like Kalen Ballage and N'Keal Harry, John Humphrey, are caliber of players that San Diego State simply does not see in the Mountain West week in and week out. And I'm sure when they watched Arizona State's film from last week, I mean, sure, they can see some opportunities that they can exploit as a defense. But when you see 2 touchdowns go for 50 yards or more for Arizona State, and it wasn't like it was a 10-yard route and then the wide receiver ran 40, 50 yards with it. I mean, it was just heaving the ball in the air and having guys like Jalen Harvey and John Humphrey just win a foot race against the cornerbacks, and that's something that's a concern to them. And I'm not taking anything for San Diego State. I mean, this is definitely a formidable out-of-conference opponent, like you said, back-to-back 11-win seasons. Since Rocky Long, their head coach, got there in 2011, they averaged 9 wins a season. But Rocky Long probably the first one to tell you that they still haven't gotten over the hump of really beating Power 5 conference teams on a regular basis. And I think part of that is just the sheer athleticism. Again, there's a lot of talent on this San Diego State team, but I feel that when it comes to just the sheer athleticism, Arizona State can definitely exploit that. I don't expect to be any easy for the Arizona State offense. I think that definitely, we're going to again talk about the line of scrimmage. I think they can present a lot of challenges over there, and I think Arizona State's really going to have to step up their running game. We talked a lot since last Thursday about the offensive line really needing to step it up after not such a great 2016 season, and I would think that group, maybe then more than any other group on an Arizona State team, really wants to prove itself. And really, again, we talk about the week 1 knee-jerk reaction of having a bad team for the entire year. I think the offensive line, first and foremost, really wants to erase that memory, so to speak, from last week. So I think it's definitely going to be a defensive challenge, and I think Arizona State may find more pay dirt, if you will, actually just in the passing game, because I think the wide receivers for Arizona State and Manny Wilkins, playing with the efficiency he played last week, can really help get that passing game going. And a lot of times you see teams, and Arizona State's no different, they actually want to set up the pass with the run. Maybe this is the game actually that Arizona State sets up the run actually with the pass.
Now, we've talked a lot about the apprehension around this team. They are 1-0, but do you think they can pull it off and go 2-0?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still a winnable game at the end of the day. I know when you look at Las Vegas odds, Arizona State is just around 3.5, 4 points, which basically is just the points that you give right out of the box just for a team playing at home. So I don't think anybody out there is really thinking Arizona State can dominate San Diego State, and I also prescribe to that theory too. But it's weird to talk about week 1 being a wake-up call. But I think that Arizona State does feel that they have a lot to clean up from last week, and maybe more to clean up than they thought they would. Again, considering the caliber opponent like New Mexico State, so I think this is a game that Arizona State is going to win. I think it's going to be a really knuckle drag out team. It's really going to be a dogfight. It's not anything pretty at all. So maybe this is one ugly win that you can live with, so to speak, just because I think of the style of play that both teams are going to have, and again the physicality factor. Todd Graham just talked a few minutes ago. This game is honoring Frank Kush. Frank Kush was known for first and foremost for this physicality of his teams. Arizona State obviously is putting a huge emphasis on the toughness aspect of this year, of this year, and I think that if they're going to win this game, they're definitely going to have to show much more toughness, much more physicality than they did last week. So I think it's in Arizona State's grasp, and I expect them to win 28-20.
28-20. Thank you so much. For Hoda Rubino, I'm Sandy Charles. Keep it right here at DevilsDigest.com. Keep it locked in. We will see you Saturday at Sun Devil Stadium against the Aztecs.